Hey cinephiles, I call this entrance the kick-axe. This is Rocking Star Yash in a scene from KGF Chapter 2, the second film in a series that has taken India by storm, becoming the second highest grossing film of all time domestically, surpassing even RRR. Welcome back to my journey through Indian cinema, an adventure that began in earnest after I made the fateful decision to see RRR on the big screen, a film that not only blew my mind, but opened my mind to a world of cinema I had been neglecting for far too long. I shared my ecstatic reaction in a video where I also asked for more recommendations of Indian films, and by Yash's beard did you all deliver. Thousands of comments have poured in highlighting films and filmmakers that I should check out, and as eager as I am to watch every single one of these, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't also extremely overwhelmed. You see, one does not simply cover Indian cinema. The sheer quantity of films from a multitude of industries, regions, and languages within India that make up the single largest film industry in the world today, atop the bedrock of rich historical and cultural context, has me feeling like an ant in the Library of Congress. Very small, very inadequate, and very likely to get squashed by YouTube comments if I say something wrong. Nevertheless, as someone determined to expand their cinematic horizon, I am pushing forward with an open mind and an open heart, one film at a time, hoping and willing to learn about Indian cinema and the people involved. So where did I decide to go next? Well, if there was any film, or I guess I should say films, that were recommended to me the most, and by that I mean almost every single hour to this day, it would undoubtedly be KGF Chapter 1 and KGF Chapter 2. In this video, I'm going to attempt to explain what KGF is all about, examine the allure of Rocking Star Yash, briefly share my thoughts on both films and my personal viewing experience, and then touch on their cultural impact and future. Okay, so KGF is an epic period action crime film series written and directed by Prashanth Neel, who works primarily in the Kannada film industry, aka Sandalwood. There are a lot of moving parts to this story, many names, places, and timelines, and it moves at a mile a minute, but here's my attempt at a brief synopsis. Primarily set in the 1970s and 80s, this is a decade-spanning chronicle of a man known as Rocky and a place known as KGF. That titular acronym refers to the Kolar goldfields, where ore is first discovered on the same night that Rocky is born into poverty to a woman whose dying wish is for him to amass great wealth.
ಅತಿ ಪ್ರಬಲನಾಗಿ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಶ್ರೀಮಂತನಾಗಿ ಸಾಯಬೇಕು.
A powerful crime boss, Suryavardhan, establishes KGF not only as a gold mine town, but as a political cult and the headquarters of his massive criminal empire. As a young man, Rocky proves himself on the streets of Bombay, paving his path to becoming one of the top assassins in the city. Given an opportunity to control all of Bombay if he kills Suryavardhan's son, Rocky finds himself at KGF, where his eyes are open to the human cost of the gold trade, and his pursuit for power and money becomes about so much more. Oh, and along the way he woos Reena, the daughter of a KGF boss.
Congratulations.
Why?
I love you.
How dare you?
How fair you.
Okay, that might be the greatest pickup line of all time.
ಚಿನ್ನ ನಾನು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಟ್ರೈನ್ ಇದ್ದಂಗೆ ನೀನ್ ಟ್ರ್ಯಾಕ್ ಇದ್ದಂಗೆ ಇಬ್ರು ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಅಂತ ಹೋಯ್ತಾ.
This guy should teach a masterclass in how to talk to women. Now, that's just a simple summation of this series, a mere setup and backdrop for an eventful plot that could have easily spanned multiple seasons of a TV show. And I haven't even mentioned how this story is told, which is one of KGF's defining features. In modern Bangalore, the owner of a news channel has convinced his hard-hitting chief editor to interview the author of El Dorado, a book chronicling the legacy of Rocky and KGF, which the Indian government has banned and attempted to erase from history.
उसके बारे में कोई लिखना या पढ़ना नहीं चाहिए.
This interview serves as a framing device, with the author serving as a narrator throughout the first film. The situation changes for Chapter 2, though it still has a similar construct. And it's the decision to tell the story in this manner that gives KGF a peculiar sense of urgency from the very beginning that doesn't ever really let up. I kept expecting the narrative to slow down or give me a chance to catch my breath, but that didn't really happen. More often than not, any given sequence feels like either a montage or a movie trailer. Depending on your appetite, I suppose this could be a pro or a con. Each film is over 2.5 hours long, which is a considerable length of time to maintain such propulsion. These are films that demand your attention and will overload your senses. It's the opposite of quote-unquote slow cinema. Like Rocky himself, KGF capitalizes on every second. You might feel exhausted by the end, but I doubt you'll feel robbed. And speaking of Rocky, let's talk about the central figure of this series and the actor playing him, Rocking Star Yash, who has possibly the two most bombastic title cards I have ever seen introducing a movie star. In Chapter 1, and then topped in Chapter 2. In all the furor over Top Gun Maverick, I've been seeing a lot of people heralding Tom Cruise as our last movie star, but this is a painfully Western perspective. Movie stars are alive and well and plentiful in Indian cinema, and Yash has become one of the biggest in recent years thanks to KGF. Yash is the not-so-secret ingredient that fuels this franchise. He has a commanding screen presence. And while he's very silly when trying to court Reena in Chapter 1, in most situations, he's a badass one-man wrecking crew in a tailored suit. Rocky is a sort of 20th century Robin Hood by way of Scarface, with a little bit of, I don't know, whoever you thought was the coolest guy growing up. He seems to be a man of the people, but he's also a gangster, but he's also a ladies' man, and a man's man. His cryptic motivations leave you to wonder if he's the messianic figure that people take him for, or if their liberation serves to put him on the throne. But somewhere under his rock-hard facade is the little boy who made a promise to his mother. Chapter 1 sees his rise to power, while Chapter 2 sees him perhaps becoming too powerful for his own good. This all clumps together to mold a most compelling anti-hero. No profile of Rocky is complete without highlighting his grandiose dialogue and Yash's flamboyant delivery.
Nanak flying kiss kodadkinta tab kan muddadade ishta.
Rocky spouts so many nuggets of wisdom and entertaining one-liners that he should have his own quote book.
Hi, I am Jimmy Carter.
Rocky,
I am the CEO of Delver Steel, Texas.
I am also CEO.
Oh, wonderful. Which one?
India.
Honestly, Yash is easily my favorite aspect of these films. That's not to disparage the many other actors involved, they are just eclipsed by his sheer presence, and that is certainly by design. A protagonist like Rocky requires formidable foes, of which there is no shortage across both chapters. The important thing is that everyone here seems to be on the same page, a page written in enormous font, bolded and underlined with lots of exclamation points.
Nive herdage. Avanu gangster alla sar. ಒಬ್ಬನೇ ಬಂದು ನುಗ್ಗಿ ಹೊಡೆದಿರೋ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್.
The emotions here are all very heightened, and everything seems to be a matter of the utmost importance. Alas, this is part of KGF's go big or go home DNA. The intensity of this storytelling extends to the filmmaking itself, especially the film editing, which, as I've pointed out, can be downright unwieldy. Perhaps nothing better exemplifies this than a car chase scene from Chapter 2. This smashing to black, a technique that is often used in movie trailers and can be an effective choice in the actual film, happens no less than 20 times during this sequence. While it's certainly iconic, the reactions to this scene in particular have been very polarizing. Some people love it, some people hate it. I even saw somebody attempting to fix it in a fan-made recut. Personally, I wasn't a fan of this car chase solely because of the editing. I just wanted to cheer on an unbroken look of Rocky putting the pedal to the metal and demolishing dudes. While smashing to black in particular isn't used throughout the film, it does demonstrate the style and rhythm of KGF. The following action scene, which I teased at the beginning of this video, sees Rocky facing off against a platoon of motorcycles, masks, and axes. I think it's a superior sequence and one of the best in the film, but even this has several cutaways. Writer-director Prashanth Neel clearly has so much he wants to show and tell. The plotting, the motivations, the consequences, but I think the filmmaking often gets in its own way. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the trail blazed by both of these films. They cover so much ground that the proportions are nothing short of epic. At the end of the day, I suppose I just wanted more balanced portions. While Chapter 2 is certainly more tonally consistent, I actually think I enjoyed my time with Chapter 1 more. That's where we see more of the goofy side of Rocky. Also, the finale and cliffhanger ending of Chapter 1, which I will not spoil here, is incredible and will leave you revved up to get to the action of Chapter 2. I watched Chapter 1 on Amazon Prime Video before getting a chance to see Chapter 2 on the big screen. In both cases, I opted for the original Kannada language. As there's often multiple language versions for these Indian blockbusters, my rule of thumb is to seek out the original language whenever possible. One thing I found fascinating about watching Chapter 1 on Amazon was the anti-smoking and drinking ad that preceded the film. In all my streaming, I had never encountered something like that before, so I have to assume this is more commonplace for India. And it didn't end there. Throughout the entire film, anytime somebody was smoking or drinking, or even if a bottle of alcohol was present, there would be a disclaimer in the bottom left corner of the screen reading, "Smoking kills" or "Drinking is injurious to health." As a cinephile, I was kind of aghast by the intrusion. It is distracting, even amusing at times, but I guess this is a legal thing you just have to accept. Maybe someone can enlighten me on this subject. I saw Chapter 2 in theaters back in April when it was still playing in the US. The original Kannada language version was only playing in one theater anywhere near me and had only one showtime at 10:05 a.m. So I drove a half hour on a Tuesday morning to go see it, and I was the only person in the theater. Now, I've been the sole audience member at showings and screenings more times than I can count, but usually that's for indie, documentary, or art house films. It felt surreal seeing this movie alone in the theater while it was shattering box office records on the other side of the world. I would have loved to have seen this with a big crowd like I had at my encore screening of RRR, but I'm just glad I was able to see it in the theater at all, because a movie like KGF Chapter 2 and a star like Yash are certainly of cinematic caliber. Sadly, that's no longer an option for those in the US, but both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are now available on Amazon Prime Video.
Only on Amazon Prime Video.
At the time of its release, KGF Chapter 1 was the most expensive Kannada language film ever made, and the first to release in 5 languages. Appropriately, it became the highest grossing Kannada language film and developed a significant cult following, which explains both the rabid anticipation and eventual audience turnout for Chapter 2, which would go on to take the crowns of most expensive and highest grossing Kannada language film, surpassing Chapter 1's entire box office gross in just 2 days. It is now the second highest grossing Indian film domestically of all time. As the comments on my video for RRR can attest, this film has legions of fans. And while KGF Chapter 2 did not make anywhere near as big a splash as RRR has here in the United States, I suspect many will catch up with it on home media in the months ahead. And they'll probably want to because of Chapter 2's tantalizing mid-credit scene. This had me cheering alone in the theater like an absolute maniac. Despite his sly attempt to assure people that there won't be a Part 3 to KGF, Neel will presumably be returning to write and direct Chapter 3, which at this point has to be one of the most anticipated Indian films ever. I know I can't wait, so if you haven't caught up with one of the biggest sensations in Indian cinema, you've got some time and an excellent reason. As I said, they are both available on Amazon Prime Video in their original Kannada language. Have you seen KGF Chapter 1 and Chapter 2? What do you think of these films, and which do you prefer? Also, do you think these are the best films that Sandalwood has to offer? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you down there. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to Cineflect for video essays, film lists, and more.
I got this!
And click that bell next to the subscribe button if you'd like to be notified anytime I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. For Cineflect, I'm JS Lewis. Until next time, watch something good.